now. Over the next few months, of course, our focus turns to the tours. England, well, their tour over here, of course, and the Lions tour. And we need someone to give us a view on all of that stuff, you know, the Yoda of rugby. And he joins us now, Eddie Jones. Eddie, how are you? Good to see you.
Nice to see you guys.
Hey, Eddie, what game did you watch in round 22? Which one did you see?
We watched Saints play Bath because we have a number of players in the squad and we're assembling on Monday, so we wanted to have a look at their last outing. So that was a tight old game. Bit of a controversy at the end with a non-scrum penalty, but they're hard to tell, those scrum penalties, aren't they?
Well, we've seen a bit of that, haven't we? We've seen a few of those. What do you make of the Gallagher Premiership when it reaches this stage of the season? You've watched a lot of leagues around the world. Very few match it for that level of drama right at the end, right?
Yeah, I think the great thing is the level of consistency of the top teams. I think the top four teams have been pretty good all season. Then you've had that next group which have been battling each other, and it's good to see Leicester come through. I think Steve Borthwick's done a great job in bringing them through. Harlequins, after a change of coach, seems to have found a little bit of mojo as well. So you basically had three competitions running. You didn't have the ultimate drama of relegation and promotion, but still there was enough tension in the air to produce some good rugby.
When I look at those four teams, I mean, often we'll have one team who might be a little bit off the mark when it comes to the semi-finals. I think this is going to be probably the most hotly contested semi-finals. But it's how they're playing personalities. They're so different the way they play the game, all four teams, aren't they? That's a really great thing about this league, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think that's a good thing that, we've got diversity of style and diversity of thought. The way each of the teams is comprised is very different as well. So it should lead to some really good rugby.
What kind of rugby would you like to be coaching of those four teams? What style would suit you most, do you think?
Well, it's not the style, mate. The style's always dependent on the players. I've coached teams that run the ball from everywhere. Japan, and I've coached England. We've kicked the ball from everywhere. It's about developing the style of play that suits the players you've got. We obviously always like to have a balance between kicking and running, contest and continuity. I think that's important. And when we get the contest and continuity right, we get a nice balance in the game. And I think we've seen in the Premiership of late, particularly, a good balance between contest and continuity, which has allowed the good sides to attack, but still allowed the good sides to contest the breakdown, which then produces some transition rugby, which is exciting for the fans to watch. So I think it's a good balance at the moment. The ruck speed in the game in the world at the moment's really changed a lot. In Super Rugby, it's gone from 3 seconds to 2 seconds, and the Premiership has had a significant decrease in the ruck speed. And when you've got consistent ruck speed, it allows you to attack with some fluidity and some consistency because you've got more space.
Yeah, quick ball wins games, right?
100%. You got to use it well.
Yeah, you can have that one. Get a T-shirt made up. Easy. Let's look at your squad for these summer tours, Eddie. It's really exciting because you're giving us a glimpse into the future of the game here as well. I mean, obviously there are constraints when selecting this squad. Talk us through them and why you went for these guys.
Yeah, well, it's a three-phase selection. We picked firstly a training squad for this week, and then for Scotland A, and then we get the semi-finalists come in, and then ultimately we get the finalists in. So we'll have the full ultimate squad the Monday after the final of the Premiership. We've got 12 Lions players unavailable, and obviously we've also rested a number of players who we feel would benefit from a really good off-season. I think it's really tough for the players, and you've got to admire how they've gone back-to-back seasons with a small pre-season. They've really stuck it out, and they've done a great job. But those players who have the opportunity to have a good pre-season now, it might be their last one before the World Cup. So we've taken that opportunity to rest a number of the senior guys.
Going back to style, Eddie, you said it's often a reflection of the type of players that you have. Looking at your squad, what style of rugby do you think we're going to see from your England squad this summer?
Well, again, I think it's dependent on the final selection to see who's available. And I like good rugby, mate. I like to play a good balance of you either win the game through set piece or you win the game through continuity or you might win the game through the aerial contest. And we just need to find ways to win, mate. That's the only thing that counts.
Yeah.
That's simple. Just find ways to win, though. I mean, he's got a point, doesn't he?
Eddie, have you sort of, well, you haven't addressed these players yet, but when you went to Argentina, we saw the likes of Tom Curry and Sam Underhill come through. I mean, realistically, with this new squad for this summer, do you honestly believe that one or two of those players might be come through in time for the World Cup in France?
100%, mate. Yeah, this is a golden opportunity for these players to come through. They've got a chance to step up. They've got a chance to adapt to Test rugby. And if we get 3 or 4 players who are then able to play Test rugby consistently to the World Cup, it's fantastic for the England team, because we know we've got 12 very good players with the Lions. We've got 5 or 6 other senior players who are resting at the moment. And then if we can find another 3 or 4 players that add energy and that relentless desire to be better, it changes the whole team.
Eddie, I wonder, I think back to the day when we were young fellas, certainly Lawrence, and you were breaking into the England team, and they were seen as development tours, weren't they? So there was no pressure on coaches like yourself to pick first teamers. Everyone got a bit of a holiday, and you're allowed to take risks. Would you like that to kind of come back again, so you could give all these young guys a run in the summer?
Oh, we're going to pick. We've got the squad to pick from, and it's going to be a young team. And it's fantastically exciting for those players, for the fans, and for England rugby that these young, talented players are coming through. But again, it's how quickly they adapt to Test rugby is always the test. You know, the big difference between Test rugby and domestic rugby in any country is the ability of the players to adapt to a different style of play, because we're bringing 12 clubs together, and if we say one word like width, then that means 12 different things. So it's our ability to find the right style for the strengths of the players, for them to adapt to that, because they have to find different roles. They can't necessarily have the same role they had with their clubs, and they do that and they come together, and that forms your England style for that group of players.
That's so interesting, actually. Ugo, you would have experienced that as a player going in.
100%, especially when you have familiarity within the squad. So you could come from one team, say Wasps or Harlequins or any of them, and you have 4 different players, and within that little unit, you play a certain way. You have to unlearn that, break that apart, and actually focus all your attention into being on the page of playing for England. I think that's the first thing, trying to deconstruct that and then learning as much as you can. You want players to be eager, you want them to be coachable, and you want to see that they have the ability to be able to potentially take that step up. I think that's going to be so vital this summer.
Let's look at the fixtures this summer, Lawrence and Eddie, and you know, it's difficult, isn't it? You're not always going to get to play a South Africa or New Zealand or Australia. You know, you got to throw the fixtures around a bit. But that's the Lions. We can go with Lions if you want. Actually, let's start with the Lions, Eddie. It's a very difficult scenario to go on tour over there. No fans, no big day trips. What's your take on them going over, and what kind of experience is it going to be for the Lions tourists?
Oh, look, it's hard for me to say. I've only ever coached against the Lions. It'd be better to ask Lawrence than me. But, look, I think the players will just be so excited by playing for the Lions. And the Lions against South Africa, you make history, you know. You can be a hero. And that's the opportunity they got. It would have obviously be far better if they could go on safari, you know, tours, days out at Cape Town, down near the wharf and all that sort of thing that we love about South Africa. But the reality of the situation is we're a difficult world at the moment. And to even go to South Africa to play against South Africa for the Lions in this period of time is a great honour and a great privilege, and I'm sure all the players will love that. I'm sure they can make some fun in the hotels themselves. You know, the Lions are traditionally, I'm sure Lawrence can tell better stories than me about how they can have fun on tour, and I'm sure they'll do that.
I see you've already ripped the TV off the wall in your room and chucked it out the window.
I don't know about that, mate.
You might feel like doing that when you're here with all these viewers' questions. We have an awful lot of them have come in for you, Eddie. What we're going to do is we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to run through those with you, if that's okay. Welcome back to Rugby Tonight. Ugo and Lal still with us in the studio. Eddie Jones joined us from the hotel. Eddie, how are you? Here comes the tough stuff, right? This is the tough stuff. This is from the fans, the audience out there. Should we just get the tough ones out of the way first of all? You won't be surprised. Well, there's a lot of questions about Sam Simmonds, okay? So let's start with Ben Norton. What is your understanding of the role of number 8? I don't think he means that as narkily as he's saying it. And why doesn't Sam Simmonds meet your requirements for that position?
Well, the role of number 8, we look at always 6, 7 and 8, the combination of 6, 7 and 8. We want someone in that back row that's hard in the contest. We want someone that hits and then someone who can fill in. And generally that's the role of the 8. The 8's a guy who can read the game really well, can get you on the front foot when you need to, and can stop the opposition getting on the front foot when they want to. And Sam's a very good player. I've been watching him carefully. We've picked him previously. And we've been watching his progress very, very carefully, and we're pleased that he's being picked for the Lions, and we'll watch him again, and then we'll see where we take it from there.
As you watch him, what are you looking out for to help you select him?
The things I mentioned, mate. The number 8 is that guy who can read the game. He can get you on the front foot when you need to get on the front foot, and stop the opposition getting on the front foot, and we think his game's really improved, and we've been feeding that back to him. And as I said, I'm pleased he's on the Lions tour.
It's interesting, so Andy Powell, Luke Murray, Turner Bludgeon, a lot of questions in a similar kind of vein, because I think fans at home see him scoring tries, searing breaks, link play, good tackles, mopping up, and they would say that is the role you're describing. So what are they not seeing that you are? What are they seeing that you don't see, or what is the little gap there between those two worlds?
Well, I don't think it's really fair to go into the player's game.
Sure.
We've spoken to him privately about what we think he needs to do. But one of the things I'm always looking at for test players is it's not the obvious things. It's the uncoachable bits, the bits they do off the ball, the bits they do to support their teammates. And that's one of the things I've always been strong on in terms of selection. We try to pick players who do the things you can't coach. The obvious things are easy, and the obvious things are scoring tries and making big runs. But there's more to rugby than that, and sometimes those obvious things, we as a coach are looking at that more closely than maybe the fans are.
And that's a really important point, Lawrence, because I've said this, to fans when they say to me, why is Sam not being selected? I see him do this, I see him do that. And I say, well, Eddie and his team are watching video hours and hours and hours and hours. There is a reason for it. It's quite high-level rugby brain stuff, but there is a reason for it. And I guess fans have to respect that, don't they?
The back row is not just about picking one player, it's about picking 3. And it's about complementary skills. There is this thing called the line-out, which is really quite important as well. And, it's huge now in international rugby. I think what Eddie wants is competition for places across the whole team, particularly in the back row. He wants players that can all put their hands up for international rugby. I believe that Sam Simmonds will come back from the Lions tour a much better player than when he went, and he's a pretty good player right now. And I think what Eddie will have next season is a lot more competition. I was dropped from the England team at number 8 after we beat the All Blacks. I was dropped for the following game against Australia. What I'd like to see is a real genuine competition across every position in England, so that Eddie has the ability to drop a player when he's not playing particularly well. And at the moment, in a few positions, we don't necessarily have that.
Old man teachers come out fighting for you, Eddie. How does it make you feel when internet nobodies think they know your job better than you, despite having zero relative experience?
Look, that's all part of it. When you sign on to be a coach of a national team, you expect to get criticism. You expect everyone to be smarter than you. You go and get petrol at the petrol station and the bloke tells you who you should pick. You go and get the grocery and there's someone there who tells you who you should pick. So that's all part of the job. And I quite enjoy it. And in reality, I read it, but I don't pay a lot of attention to it because you've got to have views, and rugby's such a judgment game because we don't have a game that's built on concrete stats. We don't measure the off-the-ball work in rugby. We don't have stats to measure that. And if you consider any game of rugby, so the games today were 80 minutes long, the ball in play was 35 minutes, out of that ball in play 35 minutes, how long does one player touch the ball for?
60 seconds.
Where'd you get more grief? Waitrose or Lidl?
Well, because I'm posh, mate, I shovel weight.
Eddie, can I talk to you? I just want to talk to you about leadership.
Too well.
Eddie, I want to just talk to you about leadership for a second. Does it? I mean, you've talked about growing the leadership within your England team. Does it concern you that very few of your frontline players captain their club sides week in, week out, and are having to make those big decisions under pressure? And what can you do to try and affect that? Is there anything that we can do to get more of your players being captain week in, week out in their club side so that they're actually making the big decisions under pressure?
No, it's a good question, mate. And as you know better than anyone, anything you do in rugby, you need to practice it, and leadership's a skill that you need to practice. But we don't have any, and nothing's changed since the game's gone professional. You know, the clubs are run by the clubs, so they're owned by private owners. And we don't have any influence in being able to ask people to be captains.
No, but the players themselves could actually be a bit stronger and actually force their way into that conversation, because I know I would want to do that in my own club, and therefore I think some of our England players could definitely force their way into that conversation.
Yeah, but I think you might find the players aren't like that these days, mate. Yeah, we all like them to be like that. Players are different these days. They're probably a lot more obedient than the vagabonds like yourself who are able to challenge a coach and stand up to them. Yeah. Players are different these days, mate. They're much more subservient to their clubs, and so we just have to find a way to keep giving them supplementary experience in leadership. And when they come into camp, run leadership programs for them, try to do bits and pieces in between campaigns. And of course, we encourage them to take leadership roles with their clubs.
I got a couple of quick fires. We have a minute left with you. A very quick one. Are we heading towards a game full of hybrid forwards backs that they could play all positions? Do you think that's going to happen?
Well, I think if the game keeps on getting quicker, we'll see that, particularly between the back row and centres. And you can see the value of having back rows who can run like centres and centres who can contest the breakdown like back rows, you know. So that's sort of those sort of positions might interchange, but you've still got the set piece, which is the differentiation we have. But I can see at the end of the game being able to use a player that has the skills to either be a back row or centre on the bench and to give you that flexibility of where you need to fit them.
I've got so many I want to ask you here, but we've got 20 seconds. I'm going to give you the quick-fire fun ones. I know you like these. This is from Oliver Keeling. Why do round pizzas go in square boxes? Any ideas?
No idea, mate.
Stumped. Good. Alex Skitt, how do you like your eggs, Eddie?
Well done, mate. Well done.
Well done, boiled. And Baron von Jasper, chicken or beef? Crucial question.
Chicken, mate.
Chicken. Always. Eddie, thank you so much.